Good morning, Senate Agriculture back in business, 2 minutes after 10 o'clock. We're going to spend some time with the secretary and some of his folks going over the report of the 2025 governor's budget proposal for agriculture. Welcome, Secretary. How are you?
We're wonderful. Thank you. It's great to be here.
I just got something to add to it. Brand new committee. At any time when we're talking about dollars and how they flow through this committee, it'd be very, very welcomed. I've only been on kind of money committees in my tenure as far as being in politics here, so it's a little bit different where we're and I realize that transportation probably isn't a money committee, but it was kind of in that sense, and of course institutions. So any way that you can help us understand how money travels through this committee would be very, very helpful. And we appreciate all that you give us.
Thank you. It's great to be here. For the record, Anson Tebbets, Secretary of Ag, Food and Markets. And we're going to tag team this. Nicole Dubuque is with us. She's head of our operations department, but also has working with the budget, and also our financial manager, business manager, Amy Mixers as well over there on the side. So for those detailed questions, we're going to dive right into it. So I'll begin with, I know you all have some really important issues that you're going to be facing, dealing with education financing and also housing, also with affordability. So we come to you with a budget that doesn't have a lot of new asks, because we know that there's some priorities that this legislature's really got to do a deep dive in, but all those areas will help agriculture, particularly education. When we get down to the side of what's going on with education, it's going to help our farm community. Affordability issues are really important. Also housing. Housing is really critical for both on the farm, but also at our processing facilities. And we're seeing that at all sizes and scales. Our small cheesemakers are looking for help if they have struggled to find housing, and some of our bigger cheesemakers, for example, Cabot in the Middlebury area, but also where it all began, the town of Cabot are struggling to find workers, but it's all connected. So those issues are important. So the governor and all of us are really focused on those priorities as well as public safety. So with that, I thought I'd just begin with a few highlights. Our mission again. Facilitate, support, and encourage the growth and viability of agriculture while protecting the working landscape, human health, animal health, plant health, consumers, and the environment. So with that is our budget. Just a few highlights. We have 144 classified positions, and we have 6 exempt positions at the Agency of Agriculture. And you can see with our first, I think we're on our chart here, you can see how it's broken down in the recommended budget from there. We have 6 appropriations. So we have the administration, which I'm a part of. We have food safety and consumer protection, which is our biggest one. And that does a lot of work with inspections related to dairy and meat, but also weights and measures. Our pocket that's non-regulatory is agriculture development, and that's supporting our farmers with economic development projects, and that's AgDev, we like to call it. Farm, which is public health and agriculture resource management. We have our lab that we share with DEC, the environmental folks down there. It's the Vermont Agriculture Environmental Laboratory at Randolph Center, which we call DALE. And then another division is our agriculture water quality division. So I'll leave it at that. And I'm going to now turn it to Nicole, where she's going to break down sort of the pockets where we get our money in our appropriation request for fiscal 26 total budget.
Thank you. For the record, Nicole Dubuque, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. I'm going to bounce back one slide. This is a new slide that we added specifically for Chair Ingles, because you requested it. So I hope this is helpful. So general fund, and we can dive into the weeds into this if you guys have any questions, but it's 21% of our base budget. And obviously you all know that our general fund is appropriated each year, typically with a modest increase, which helps us account for the increases in our internal service fees and things like that. Next comes federal funds, which is 40% of our base budget, which is, I think, fairly large comparatively to other agencies. So the agency receives funds from multiple federal agencies to complete work locally that expands their bandwidth. Our federal funds come through USDA, FDA, and EPA in different divisions. So I just did a little visual here to show you kind of how the appropriation is done from the federal level straight to the State Department of Agriculture for these different programs. I think a really good example here is our meat inspection program. That might be a good one. So we have meat inspectors that have to keep federal USDA granted plants running. And so in order to do that in the most cost efficient way, we have state employees essentially do that on behalf of USDA, and we're paid for that work. And
Are we, it's a fair question. We hear about freezing of funds and all of that. Are we affected? Are this budget going to be affected by that as it stands right now?
I think we're on the tarmac and the holding pattern, and we're evaluating and watching. There are, as far as our agency, we have not seen a dramatic impact so far, but we have had, I would say, things on pause as the new administration gets settled. And yesterday, the Ag Secretary was sworn in. So that should bring, I think, more clarity of what directions we are headed. I don't know, Amy, if you want to, we've checked, we continue to put in our receipts and billing, and it seems to be we're able to get through. But some of that is monthly, some of it's weekly. So we're kind of in a holding pattern, but I would say there is anxiety. I would not underestimate the anxiety of trying to speculate. We're trying not to speculate. We're trying to deal with the facts of where things are headed. But I think there are some within the ag world and some of the USDA programs that have been on pause. And there may be some work that has been done and they have not been paid for it. So those are, very nervous. We've got some producers and farmers, I think, would be very nervous. Some of the work that's been done and they have not been compensated for those federal programs.
For the record, Amy Mercer, Financial Director. We've submitted our claims for our various grants, and we've been able to submit those through the various federal systems. So it's just a matter, it's a little paused in getting the funds back into the state, getting reimbursed from the federal government, but we are seeing them come through. It's just maybe taking a little bit longer.
I'm sorry, when you say you've been seeing them come through, you're saying the funding come through?
Yes.
Okay.
We're different pots, we're tracking it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
still relatively new, but we have a tracking spreadsheet where we're tracking the different federal systems that we input the information into, because there's a few of them. And then when we get reimbursed, so we know how much we have outstanding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does this happen every time that we transfer from one administration to another? You have kind of a hiccup for a month or so? Or is this new ground?
I would say there is always a difference in administrations we've gone through. So we came in, I came in on Trump 1, then we had the Biden administration, and then we're going back to Trump 2. I would say this is a little different than the last two, where existing programs that are already working their way through have been put on pause. So I think it's a little different, and that may come from the experience of the having one administration experience 4 years, and they've got a lot of people who went through that. So I think it's a little different, that I think at a wider scale that things were put on pause. There's always change in administration and priorities and change in programs. Like maybe one that was there 4 years, that they're not going to renew it. But I think it's a little different this time. Is the anxiety is that these things that started, they may be halfway, 3/4 through, and it's been put on pause. So they're just, a lot of people are wondering if they're even gonna get you one all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then 35% of our base budget is special funds. So the agency is charged with collecting a variety of fees for licenses and registrations. The revenue received from the fees is used as part of our base budget and supports staff and operations. So our fees have been maintained at the same level for quite a while. So we're able to budget effectively what we're going to get. It's roughly the same number of registrations and things year to year. So an example that I put on here is pesticide registration fees. They're used to support pesticide enforcement and the lab work around that. Then we have interdepartmental transfer funds, which is about 4% of our base budget, and that's funding that is transferred from another agency or department to assist with their work. So I gave an example here of like funding from the Department of Labor for farm worker housing inspections specifically. So that's kind of the 1,000-foot view of our funding flow.
Thank you.
All right. And then for the fiscal year 26 total budget breakdown, 59,994,387. And then here's the breakdown again of how much of that is general fund, which was 21%, special funds 35%, federal funds 40%, and transfer funds 4%. So the areas of change by fund category is we had a net increase over fiscal year 25 of 8%. That would be 5% in general fund of an increase, 2.8% increase in special funds, 12.2% decrease in federal fund, and a 38.9% increase in interdepartmental transfer. And I will go into each one of those in detail. Here's more about our areas of increase, which I'm not going to spend time on line by line in here because a lot of these I'm sure you've seen before, and in other money committees, there are kind of general internal services and employee benefit packages, family medical leave, retirement, childcare contribution. That's the majority of our increase. Salary increases. And then we had a 1.7 million increase in USDA Dairy Business Innovation Center grant federal funds, and $450,000 increase in Lake Champlain Basin Program grants, which is interdepartmental transfer funds. So that's reflective of the 38% we saw on the previous slide. Areas of decrease. So we have a proposed decrease of $110,000 to State Clean Water Fund grants. That comes straight out of the Clean Water Board recommendation. And then we have a decrease of $112,000 to Natural Resource Conservation Council. The NRCC grant is what we typically refer to those as. That said, they do also have separate grant funding of about $7 million. And then $113,000 fee for space internal service fee that decreased. And that would be kind of what BGS has told us that our fee for space is.
Nicole, is that middle piece, we had the conservation districts in yesterday. Is that where that $112,000 reduction? Okay.
Yeah, so they have two different kind of pots of money, so to speak. So this would bring their budget from us for kind of their administrative costs to $500,000
Instead of 612.
instead of 612. And then the other pot of money is separate grants that they get for programming, which has gone from 5 million to 7 million over last year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is our breakdown of our positions. We've maintained net neutral. We still are at 150 positions, but I wanted to show you where there's been some changeover. So we had a staff attorney position that was with the Attorney General's office. We brought that in-house. So now we have our compliance policy and enforcement manager, who is also an attorney, doing taking over most of that work. And then we had 2 limited service positions, a communication specialist and an ag development specialist 1, that were returned to limited service positions for work that had been completed. And then we brought on 2 limited service positions, which is the ag development specialist 2 and the contract and grant specialist. And that's attached to federal funding that came from the Resilient Food Infrastructure Systems grant from USDA. Apologies, it's hard for me to not talk in acronyms. I'm working on it. So then I have a list here of our kind of high profile budget items and the general fund funding level. These have been level funded except for the National Resource Conservation Council, which we already talked about taking from 612 to 500.
Yep.
All right. So this is our crosswalk or up and down for the administration division. As you can see, we don't have any kind of arrows or highlights on here because there's not any big items that we're changing. So we've had standard increases to salary and benefits in that division, but no notable changes to budget for fiscal year 26. Then we move on to our food safety consumer protection division. Again, you all should have the slide of our ups and downs, our crosswalk overview here. Again, we have had standard increases to salaries and benefits, but there's no other changes to the budget. Ag development. So we have the contractual and third-party services increase in budget for Dairy Business Innovation Center grants, and that was the 1.7 million. And then we had a decrease in fee for space costs in the amount of 63,000 for the Vermont building at the Big E located in Springfield, Massachusetts. USDA organic cost share program increased by $50,000. And then we received 300,000 in a federal award for local food systems and school grants.
Yes, questions? Thank you.
On the Big E, did we hear that that building was gonna need some repair in that? So why did they increase the cost?
I don't know the full answer to that. I'm gonna look to see if Amy knows
It
about.
seems like if we always,
Yeah, so this is sort of the day-to-day maintenance operations budget. So the calculation is through buildings and services, they don't need as much maintenance that's done on a yearly basis. The one you're referring to is going to go through the capital bill,
yeah,
which is
Capital
going to
versus
be like, we're going to make significant improvements to the structure, the wiring, and the flow and all that. So it's two budgets. So this is sort of the
so
day-to-day.
maybe saving here, but spending.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And those will be one-time capital improvement budgets.
yeah.
Yes.
Make the building more energy efficient, more ADA compliant. All right. So we've got some highlight slides here. This is on the working land enterprise, and there's some fiscal year 25 highlights on here. It shows our total budget of $1,035,000, 1 million of which was in our base budget from general fund. And so we invested 18.8 million in 555 farm, food, and forestry projects, leveraged an additional 30.9 million in matching funds, which I love to highlight because I think that's so important to be able to bring in matching funds. Investments made across all 14 counties in the state. These investments have created over 540 new jobs and more than 92 million generated in sales by granted businesses. Over 24,985 acres kept worked. So another thing to highlight that's on the bottom here is just giving you an idea of how many kind of applications we get. So we had 1 million in available funds and we got over 5 million in requests.
And over the last 2 years, we did increase the budget, the base, I think 2 years ago, we were at 360,000. The governor recommended getting up to $1 million, which we were fortunate to get. So the base is now at $1 million. And we also were able to get some one-time dollars that were very valuable because of some of the federal programs that came through and also some of the robust economy we had. And the impact statement is out on that. And I do not know if you've had working lands in together.
We have.
Yeah, so I think you probably saw the scope of
We
it.
just are, we're very thankful for the projects that are going out the door, but very heartfelt for the ones that didn't.
Yeah.
Over and over and over, I think the theme of what we're seeing in this committee, we just saw it again, but everybody that comes in here is a young farmer. And where we were really worried about from the outside looking in until you sit in this room. We're worried about how farming was going to continue in the state of Vermont, but then you see the push of what the state of Vermont's doing to make sure that the first generational farmers can continue on, and it isn't like generational farming that are taking over the farms. It's new people getting into the markets, and I get it. Money's money, and there's not anybody that doesn't come in here that doesn't ask for more. But what a difference $10 million more would make in some of these funds to these overprescribed programs. When you're seeing 7-to-1 ask versus what's available, and one of the things was 76% of the applicants, they could have, they were picking from 76% of the applicants that any one of them could have got the grants. And then they could only pick with what they could go with. So yeah, would love to see more money in there. We get it. We know how budgets are, but maybe someday we'll get there.
Okay, moving on to DBIC, the Dairy Business Innovation Center. So in Vermont, we have one of 4 regional USDA Dairy Business Innovation initiatives in the nation. So there's only 4, and Vermont runs the New England DBIC, which serves 11 state regions. So we're not just serving Vermont. We've got the states listed here. So it's all of New England, and then we've got Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. So amount awarded to the Northeastern DBIC for projects extending through 2027 is $53 million. The impact in Vermont specifically, so as of December 1st, 2024, DBIC has awarded $11,609,000 to Vermont Dairy. Vermont dairy farms and processors of all sizes have received funding across the grant programs, including on-farm milk storage and handling, food safety and certification, agritourism, marketing and branding services, farm innovation and modernization, processor research and development, innovation and processor expansion. So number of grants and contracts awarded is 125 out of 284 applications. And then the average funding award ranges from 10,000 to $1 million, but the average is 92,000. This is just a visual for you all to have to show the number of applications across the Northeast region that our DBIC covers. So it's about a 36% award rate for over 1,000 applications, and like I said, all the way down from Maine to Delaware. Any questions on this? And then I can. Nope.
We get our fair share of that. When you look at all that, when you look at the dots on the map.
We do have a fair amount of dairy in Vermont comparably for sure. So public health and ag resource management, we affectionately call this division farm on a regular basis. So the farm division budget has seen standard increases to salary and benefits. Pesticide education and safety program grant, that's with UVM extension, is for $35,000. So that's the change for this year, an increase to align with our updated safety and certification training plan approved by the EPA. And then other than that, there's no other notable changes within that division. Then we move on to Vermont Agriculture and Environmental Lab, Vail, which is our lab in Randolph, that I think you all are coming to a tour
On
to.
Thursday, we're headed there on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody, we're gonna be there on
Well,
Thursday.
actually, I just got notice that you're having a joint assembly on that day,
Oh,
so we're gonna have to change that date.
okay,
Oh, yeah, we got the sergeant on it.
okay.
Well, one day. Sooner one day.
Just kidding.
That's okay. So Vail has also seen the standard increases to salary and benefits, and we did also get a decrease in fee for space there as well of 59,000. And then the Ag Clean Water Initiative is what it says on the top, but this is our water quality division. So here, the water quality division budget has seen standard increases. The decrease to NRCC, Natural Resources Conservation Council, by 112,000, decrease of 100,000 to State Clean Water Fund grants. Again, that comes from the Clean Water Board budget. Lake Champlain Basin Program grants increased by 450,000. That is an MOU with the Department of Environmental Conservation. And then an increase of 90,000 in federal funding for ADS application support contracts for NRCS and RCPP.
And RCS, CIG, and RCC.
I thought you said you're gonna work on those acronyms.
I'm sorry, and that's the one that I'm gonna have to look up for you because
Natural resources, and then
the CIG is the one that I'm
CIG.
on.
I can't think of CIG. Anyway, there's a book out there with all these.
Dictionary. There's a dictionary.
Yeah, there is.
Thank you, Chair. So, being this CAPO coming up, is that gonna affect this, the budget of this, of how many more people we may need, or is that gonna happen on the,
It will not, in the proposed plan that, the Agency of Natural Resources will put before does not, does include, I think, some positions to help stand up the CAPO program, but it will not be through our budget. It'll be through the natural resources. Good call.
All right, and then we can get into our programmatic performance measures. So Act 250, which is within our climate and land use group in the administration division. So we have a few performance measures here. You'll see that there's some pretty notable increases for 2024 for offsite mitigation and offsite mitigation fees, and that's just reflective of the fact that we are amping up construction for housing in the state. These aren't really performance measures that are within our control. We just can track how many applications we're reviewing. So the Vermont Produce Program, the number of farms with produce sales enrolled and verified in the Vermont Produce Portal has gone up from 663 to 704. And the total number of support services provided to Vermont produce farms has gone down slightly to 210 from 245, which is really based on people reaching out to us and asking for that support. Working Lands Initiative, which we just talked about, the number of jobs created, 545. The total increase in net income has remained the same. And then the average percentage increase in product output is down 21% from 28% the previous year. Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center, you'll see some big jumps in numbers here. So the number that experienced increased sales has dropped a little bit. We've been doing some larger projects. The number of new and or existing delivery systems has gone up quite a bit. The number of farmers who have learned new management strategies has gone up a lot because these are kind of new programmatic changes that we've implemented, additional kind of services that we're offering. And then the percentage of participants that express satisfaction, which is a self-report, is at 99%.
And I just maybe highlight a local issue on that. In a couple of weeks, we will have a new economic impact statement of dairy that will be out. It's at the printers now.
Nice.
And I think the goal is to make it public in early March. But I can give you a highlight. We haven't done one in about 10 years, and the economic impact is well over 4 billion of activity just within the dairy industry. A lot of it related to value added and what's going on there. And we'll have some environmental impacts as well. So we hope to release that. And maybe at one time it's appropriate, we can come before you with all the details of that. But we're pretty excited about that. We've had a lot of partners looking at the economics of dairy and the number of employees related to it, the infrastructure, and sort of the trends that are happening in dairy and how it's still vital to our agriculture economy is one of the.
Did not feel the thunder on that. Is the trend going up after that report?
Yeah, there's a lot of positive data in that report about, and it's really focused on value added.
Right.
And people are consuming more dairy than they ever have been consuming dairy. And we just have some of the, finest quality, high quality value added dairy producers with that. So it highlights some of the trends, but I think the last time we did a report, it was about a $2 billion economic.
Yeah.
So we've gone up, and I think tourism recently, their impact was about 4 billion as well. So,
Yeah,
I think it will be.
so it's neck and neck then.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
but it's important we do this every once in a while, and it was getting a little old, so the 10-year plan is good.
We've heard from some of the milk producers that they're hoping to find another processor to come. Like New York's got 6 new processors, they said. And we're talking about this thing, good time to ask that question. Do you have any processors reached out to?
We have not, and, there's, milk moves around, around the Northeast, in a big way, but those investments are, those are the significant investments. The ones that are happening in New York even will benefit our Vermont producers to some extent, because that milk some Vermont milk may end up in those processing plants. But New York is a significant dairy state. They're number 5 in the country as far as production. California being number 1, and we're about 20 in that. We're the biggest in New England. But that big new processor has not come, and I think we are trying to make investments and make sure we maintain the current ones we have. Like we did through the Innovation Center, we did make some investments in the Cabot plant where they're cracking up line, and also some of the robotics that are helping making it a little easier to package the cheese and so forth. But as far as a new one, we have not had one. There are some expansions going on in smaller scale, but not a significant one that's stamped up yet.
How does our market compare as far as, we're obviously seem to be known very well. I mean, winning world awards for cheese products all over our state. How does that market break down as far as fluid milk versus cheese milk? I mean, we above the average of what other dairy producing states are, is how we're using that product within our own state and marketing in that way?
I think we're probably on the plus side of value added as opposed to, some of the milk. We do have, we have the Hood plant, the Booth Brothers plant. We've got some smaller ones that are on farm processing with fluid.
In Kirby, it's just very.
Yeah, and that is just, that's outstanding. I hope to get up and see that, because that's,
Me as well.
that is one of those, and we're seeing that, and not everyone can do it. So this is a situation where they're probably at a scale that they didn't want to grow too much and just sell to a co-op or milk handler, but they worked with our dairy division to, put in a pasteurizer, and which is not a small task, trying to manage all the regulations and food safety and so forth. But that one is a startup, and they're hyper local. But that's really encouraging to see someone that going into that. And we're seeing that with some of our cheesemakers as well. And that's when the Innovation Center comes in. We can help, maybe help with some of the affordability of those. With our Innovation Center, we can maybe get that, pay for that pasteurizer, or pay for that bottling equipment, et cetera, on all sizes and scales. But again, as that program becomes more known, it's become very competitive to receive those grants. Those are also on the farm, because we're dealing with, we've financed maybe robots at a smaller scale, like maybe a farmer that has 60, 70 cows can put one robot in, and we can help finance that. And that's a game changer, because that saves on labor, and they can do
Absolutely.
the 4 hours that they're not behind the cows, they're probably doing other work on the farm, or they can have a better quality of life. So those things are really quite important. And we've had some manure equipment with robots that sweep up the manure and get it where it's supposed to go, and same with feed. So it's kind of impressive, all that. And it's technology. We often think it's just for the large scale, but actually there is some really neat technology going on in the smaller scale, everything from animal welfare and health to how we feed and clean up our eggs and so forth. So it's kind of cool.
Just to have a milker on one farm like that, I mean, it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just that, as you noted, it's just that they just don't have that money to get it there. And, but it would make as much sense there as it would anywhere.
Yeah, over 10 years, you know, the labor that they're probably saving in that makes it's that big initial capital investment. It's a challenge, but we can help with that. And that's why we're so fortunate to have the Innovation Center that's deployed a lot of projects in its infrastructure. It's on the farm or in the processing plant, which is kind of cool. All right, derailed this.
No, you're good. I actually want to put in a plug here, and I don't want to get too far ahead of Laura Ginsburg, who is our director of the DBIC, but she is scheduling right now some future of dairy kind of community meetings so that people from the dairy industry can come in and talk to us and talk about kind of the ideas for the future. So I just want to put that out there that if any of you want to attend those, I'm happy to send you the dates for your regions. I know that she's starting with Franklin and Grand Isle, so. But she's going to all 14 counties. Right. Meat inspection. So we're going through the food safety and consumer protection measures now. So the meat inspection has been pretty much status quo. We've done additional inspections from 3,400 to 42. And the number of compliance activities from 96 to 198 in 2024. But roughly we've been doing the same work. We were able to increase our staffing in that section by 2 meat inspectors a couple of years ago. So that's really helped with being able to increase our number. Dairy inspection. So this is again pretty much status quo. We have roughly the same number of licenses and registrations. It's gone up by about 32. Number of inspections completed, we've gone up by 3. Number of compliance activities down from 2023 from 27 to 20, which is great. We love having less activity. Animal health, again, status quo. Roughly, we've had a few less licensing or registrations. Roughly the same number of inspections, not by 5, and number of compliance activities is 9 versus 14, but all about the same. Weights and measures. Same thing, we're moving number of licenses and registrations, number of inspections, and number of compliance activities. We've done a number more inspections in 2024 from 2023, which I would say is again because we added a position a couple of years ago. Maple, roughly about the same. We have 2 more licenses in 2024 from 2023. 14 inspections, 5 compliance activities. Country of origin labeling, same exact number of licenses from 23 to 24. Produce safety inspection, again, status quo. We didn't have any consumer complaints in 2024, so that's wonderful. And then eggs, same thing. If we get complaints, we have to go and check on that and make sure that everything is good. So that has been roughly the same. Okay, we can move into farms. So mosquito and tick control. I know you all probably heard about the triple E in the news last year. So we did have a higher number of mosquito pools test positive for triple E in West Nile last year. But as you can see on here, it's, you know, by a fraction of a percent, but it's something that we should definitely be aware of. And then the number of mosquitoes collected and identified was 129,000 in 2024. Usually because this is a calendar year, and we collect this data in October, next year you'll see that it's gone up when we finalize the data. It'll probably be more in the 150,000 range. Vail, the number of completed analytical tests has gone up a fair amount, which is great. The percent of test results issued by Vail without recall or correction is at 99.7%. They do a great job down there. And the number of unique Vermont-based projects who rely on Vail's analytical services for essential environmental monitoring, consumer protection, animal health, and regulatory compliance is 81 projects. We do have, like Secretary Tebbett said, it's a lab with both our agency as well as the Agency of Natural Resources, but then we do have tenants. So the main person that we share it with is Department of Environmental Conservation, but there's also Fish and Wildlife in there. Our animal health staff are also has a lab. Our weights and measures folks also has a lab down there. So that plays a part in kind of what our director oversees. Water quality. So this goes through kind of the number of visits that we do in our ag water quality division every year. So the number of regulatory farm visits in 2024 was 234. Number of non-regulatory is 1,274 acres of production area inspected. 2,930. Percentage of compliant production areas by acres, 67%. The number of educational events is 101, and the value of on-farm implementation investments was up to 10.3 million in 2024. That's all of our performance measures, and then we can go into our carry forward funds. This would have been as of September 2024. So $50,000 funds approved for the Pay Act. In Ag Dev, it's a total of 1.6 million. And that's in working lands, farm to school, farm to plate, local foods and fairs. And essentially these are multi-year projects. So all of these funds are obligated in existing grant agreements, but they just haven't been fully expended yet. And then farm, we have 407,000, and that is kind of a carry forward for mosquito control specifically if we have to do extra interventions for Triple E, West Nile, Zika, et cetera. In clean water, very similar to agricultural development, we have $417,000 that we're carrying forward. And these are, again, multi-year projects that we're doing through programs in that division. And so the funds are in existing grants and contracts, and we're just slowly expending them as the projects go on. One-time appropriation. So we have carry forward of 5.9 million from one-time appropriations. This is, again, working lands, ecosystem services, organic milk and produce safety, conservation district, charger and EV charger inspections, replacement of existing food safety inspection database, which that's ongoing with ADS right now. So that's not complete. And then Salvation Farms to expend access to locally grown food for all Vermonters. So again, I probably sound like a broken record, but all of our carry forward funds are obligated and they're in grant agreements, but we just have a lot of multi-year projects. Same thing. We have more carry forward here. So we've got working lands and we've got the meat maple produce grants that would have been from last year. Sustainable Job for Independent Retail Grocer Project and Beef on Dairy Project, Dairy Risk Management Assistance Program, and the Small Farmer Diversification and Transition Program. So all of these are funds that are in existing grants or contracts. So they're obligated, again, long-term projects, except for the Dairy Risk Management Assistance Program, which is essentially set aside. And there are a number of farms remaining that are eligible to apply for those funds. So that's still ongoing. We just haven't had all of the farms that are eligible actually go through the application process. And that is our presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we had the three representatives of the federal delegation in this committee probably a week ago, maybe a month and a half. And yesterday, I had them in the Government Operations Committee. So we got the big boss here. I'll just repeat what I said there to them. And actually, yesterday we had David Shear, who represents Congresswoman Fallon. And then the other two were Katie Van Haste and Ryan McLaren, who were in the committee room here. So we're talking about the federal milk order. And I'll just put it again out there, big fan of dairy. And so, and the way that we determine a 100-weight price is different now than it probably was at some point 9 or 10 months ago. Instead of the average of the four classes of milk products, it's the higher of, and then that average is taken, and that's where the 100-weight price comes from. And farmers that I know are delighted with that. So I'm hoping that, and I use the term monkeying around, I'm hoping that it stays that way for the foreseeable future. You know, we're north of 21, I think now $21 and some odd cent. If you get to 25, you will find people are even happier. And, I'm just putting that out there and I'm hoping that, if anybody's watching from Washington, that we keep that in place. Cause it did make a huge difference. If you take the average of those 4 classes or the higher of, obviously the higher of is gonna percent.
Wasn't it 1.4 billion or something like that? It made a difference in their monies or something?
Yeah,
like
it was huge.
Yeah, we'll have a big impact. For example, I know Agabar Cabot is really worked hard on getting this adjustment made, and that is, it's a 2-year process just to get to this point to go through the complicated system of the federal system. But I think particularly Cabot is encouraged by this change and advocated for it. So hopefully it will help their bottom line and
Yeah.
the farmers' bottom line with that. But yeah, we hope that the price of milk will continue to be stable and continue to rise.
Yeah.
It's in a better spot than it's been, but of course, on the other side of the inputs are extremely high right
The
now.
expenses are higher
There's
too.
big expenses, so, but affordability really important to
Yeah.
the farm community as well. I'm glad you brought that up. Because that one it took 2+ years, but hopefully on the ground over the next few months, make a difference for folks like Cabot and others.
Bird flu?
Bird flu, we continue to, on the dairy side, we continue to test, and we've had no detections. We sent out another round of milk samples last night to Cornell to be tested, and so far it's all been negative. Across the country, there's pockets that are still pretty hot. We're biosecurity, we're telling everyone. We got 2 strains. We got the bird flu one with the sort of the poultry side of it, and then we got the dairy side. And something happened in Nevada where they think maybe this is a new part of it. The birds may have transmitted it to the dairy, which is a different one. So I think next week we're working on getting some information out to our dairy farmers related to controlling of some of the wild bird population, the birds that are not protected. Starlings, house sparrows, pigeons, etc., that sometimes get into barns and so forth and possibly could spread. So, and that's another one through USDA and Wildlife Services, or working with them and Fish and Wildlife. But we continue to focus on it a lot. Just test, and so far so good. We haven't had it in the Northeast, haven't had it in New York, haven't had it in Pennsylvania, haven't had it in various states, I think Ohio and North Carolina, but E.B. Flory and Dr. Buskey and Dr. Levine on it right there working hard.
Vail doesn't do any of that testing then. It goes to Cornell.
Yeah, under the USDA, there's certain certified labs that must be done. Fortunately, USDA is paying for a lot of this. And state is not paying for this testing. We're lucky that we got our grant agreement done prior to change in administration, so that did not slow it down. I think some other states are in that space right now, waiting for their grant agreements to kick in, but ours was approved in December, so we were ahead of that. So we were fortunate. So just keep test. And the goal is to eventually, when we get the right matrix, that maybe Vermont will be cleared free of it. So that will help check our dairy industry and our consumers. And Dr. Levine from the health department, I think, was in this maybe last week talking about the health side of that. So we're in contact with them as well. We're always concerned about the health of our farmers and workers and et cetera. So that's part of the equation as well.
So it's been different this year than it has in the past, and this is as much for the new senators as any, as far as, because we're putting so much focus on education and trying to get through that process as we should. And we agree with all that stuff. And this is a tough question to ask the secretary, but happy with the budget?
Yeah, we've been really fortunate. We've had a lot of one-time monies for the last couple of years making these investments. And we understand that there's a lot of significant issues that guys in every state is facing. we've got some really, from addiction to corrections to property tax issues. So I think, and all those areas, if we can make progress in those, to help our agricultural communities around, housing, I can't tell you how many small processors, large processors really need help with that. But, farmers pay a lot in property taxes, big education. They're really valuable for our communities. If you can have vibrant rural communities, they live and work and maybe they're there 24 hours a day. So they serve on their school boards, they serve on their fire departments, the rescue squads. So any attention to, solve some of those big issues helps agriculture. So I don't think it's a straight line of, what's in our budget. We're always grateful. We always have been the last few years of taking those investments. But I think what we're all focused on is those 3 or 4 major priorities going through this, because it will make a difference to our ag community.
Well, hearing about the new study that's coming out, or the new findings are coming out with 4.2 number as far as in Darien itself, and just seeing the people that we are coming through our committees as far as the young people that are in this business. And as a few weeks ago, Senator Heffernan and I and you as well attended in Addison or Middlebury, these young farmers that are coming on board, the first generational farmers and all that stuff. I would say that we're being led in the right direction as far as taking advantage of what Vermont has to offer and allowing progress to be made in all segments of ag. And it's a fun committee to be on right now, because you don't have the sense that it's on the tail end. You, if anything, my look at it is like, man, we're on the upswing.
And there's tremendous energy out there, and it's just all a matter of capacity and so forth. Today's it's Valentine's Day in Kelly, and some people may be getting some flowers, but we do have some we even have some flower businesses that are farmers that are growing, and you'll see today maybe in some of your retail operations of growing flowers. And I was reading how much the United States imports of flowers from other countries. I think Colombia is one of our biggest, maybe 70% of the flowers that come to the United States are coming out of Colombia. But even that is, that's agriculture. You have people that are growing dahlias and tubers and selling those. We have CSAs now with flowers, locally flowers. We have, some of the valley, River Valley, but we have some. Got one down in Bristol.
Right.
That's
My niece.
oh, that's your niece. Oh, good. Well, it's that. So those types of things are happening, but that also takes, investment in infrastructure and knowledge and technical systems. We have partners, UVM, that are helping on that. But it's we want to support all agriculture, big, small, whatever. But diversified agriculture is wonderful, and continue to have those big basins of maple. But there's a lot of creative stuff that's happening right there.
What we found out yesterday, and it was an eye opener for us, or for me in particular, is that there seems to be a thought process out there all to use our local product. It might cost more, but we're finding out now. We heard about a company in Albany that's pushing down into New York and the Boston markets, and competing with these producers that are coming out of South America and Mexico and all of that. And buyers are they're competitive. The buyers are going to buy where they think the value is, and they might put a preference to fresh or local grown and all that. But at the end of the day, it's everybody's wallets that are getting affected, and to hear us pushing down into those markets and being competitive and expanding those markets it's very nice to hear.
And I've encouraged this whole debate about the price of eggs is fascinating to listen to. But I can see some restaurants in the region returning to local suppliers for eggs because they're supporting. So that was encouraging as well.
So, but I won't get into the egg discussion.
It's turning into a political hot topic.
It's one of those things. I think everyone's got an opinion on eggs right now, but that's great. That's great. But we have some nice local producers that are. But I'm just warning anyone that gets into the backyard chicken business to just be careful of that.
Yeah.
It may look good today, but
Yeah.
after a few roses or fox get into the chicken house, maybe it's a story.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's we have a lot of nice local producers, and of course they're nervous as heck about this bird flu. So we've had discussions with fried turkey producers as well. So, but yeah, the egg one is a big one.
Ready, anything else?
Okay, well, answer the plug. Speaking of birds, Answer does a program on WDEV. There's twice a weekend
He does.
for the birds, and you might want to tune in.
I listened to it a couple of weeks ago. I did about the, was it Purple?
Oh yeah, Pearl Martin.
Yeah, yeah.
Down in Addison County, they have a good population of purple martins. There's the ones that have little condo houses, you know, and deer habitat down in Orwell, down that way. It's really a good part of it. But yeah, no, it's this is chickadee weather right now. The only people that are moving right now are chickadees.
Yeah.
No,
Let's
and
bring it
farmers,
on the way.
I hear farmers all the time tell me about their wonderful nature lovers. So they know where all their wildlife is.
Yeah.
Cardinals are moving around too.
Cardinals?
I saw one yesterday.
And you have Addison County, that whole area has incredible birding. You've got bunting, which gives you the whole fields and feed on the newer piles and the newer down here, but. Yeah, but we're getting there. Migration starts. What's today? Oh, maybe.
Valentine's.
Valentine's, yeah, 14.
You keep forgetting it's Valentine's Day. That-
March will start. I know, I keep forgetting it's Valentine's Day. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. But the owls are beginning to think about having new owls because you can hear them now.
Yeah.
In the woods.
Yeah.
People out sugar, so the whole good stuff. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll follow up on any questions. I got one final. We're here to help.
Yeah.
So these are little cards. So we have someone at the agency that troubleshoots issues. So if you have constituents, if they want to go to someone and figure out an issue, I've got a few cards.
Thank you.
Pass around the name, the numbers on the back. That's what they're doing. But we've got someone at the agency. Now it's just, so if you want to keep those close, if you have a constituent that needs help, we're focused on constituent services if you can, so that you can send them right to Jenny there.
Well, thanks for all that you do.
All right.
Thank you coming in and going down to the money with us. That helps, very helpful. All right, committee, as far as what we just heard. We want to have Linda print off one Bible for us that we can keep someplace that we can refer back to, or do you think that we can find keep an electronic copy? What would you guys like? I think it would be helpful to have one Bible.
Yeah.
As far as to have that. I think we just need, we don't need it. I think just one that we can refer to. Would everybody be fine with that?
Yeah.
Save a little paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that'd be good. Anything else, committee? Good week. We went through a lot of stuff. As Linda says, she's gonna let us know about our Thursday that's been changed. Other than that, let's yes.
But just remind folks, next Thursday and Friday, we will not have board session. The pro tem is attending a conference, so we're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday next week.
20 and 21st.
Board sessions.
Okay.
In case you got bills that are.
Here. Other than that, everybody's getting what they want, everybody's doing what they want, everybody's doing it, and Senator Major next week's got some stuff that he's gonna get out on us, one bill that we're gonna look at. I'm gonna meet with actually Anson's attorney Steve Collier as far as on some water quality stuff at the miscellaneous ag bill, so I can learn a little bit about that. Remember, we're all still drinking out of a fire hose. Don't be too proud about asking and whatever, as far as anything that you need to know more information about. There's no sin about that. The biggest sin would be to make a decision based on something you really don't know about. So keep pushing, keep learning, keep doing, keep asking, all of that.